Well, supercomputers are used for everything, and I'm talking about data centers. I started a data center a long time ago with a fairly simple mini computer, but as you can see with Elon Musk, his project in Memphis is raising a few eyebrows, and sometimes you find that one thing leads to another. In his particular case, got into a pollution thing. It was more than just the noise. It got into the air pollution, the smell.
In Memphis, Elon Musk is making a play to control the future of artificial intelligence. His company, xAI, says it has built the biggest supercomputer in the world with lightning speed. Paul Young is the city's mayor.
It represents a tremendous opportunity, an opportunity for us to take our economy to the next level.
xAI says it will create $100 million in revenue and hundreds of jobs. But the digital future needs power, lots of it. These are the gas turbines fueling the supercomputer they call Colossus. They emit hazardous pollutants like formaldehyde and nitrogen oxides, according to the manufacturer.
Just over this fence, you can see and hear the turbines churning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Without them, the data center does not function. What's not in dispute is the fact that they are polluting the air. What people don't know is how much of that pollution is reaching nearby communities.
Easter Knox lives 2 miles away.
You smelled it
Yes, Lord.
right away?
I sure did. Well, after they got situated, I started smelling it.
Knox lives in Boxtown, a mostly black, low-income neighborhood in South Memphis,
The health department, they need to be ashamed.
where industry has taken a toll for generations.
There's a lot of people out here who got medical problems like breathing issues.
Cancer risks here are 4 times higher than the national average. Cancer killed her father and other relatives, Knox tells us. Life expectancy here is 9 years less than the national average. Elon Musk's company is not to blame for those numbers, but that legacy and those turbines have triggered a backlash against xAI.
Hello, everyone.
A recent health department hearing turned into a shouting match. An executive from xAI ducking out a side door. The mayor says the city is hoping to start testing the air in the next 2 months.
Right now, there are people in that community that feel like they have been railroaded by xAI, that they weren't a part of the conversation when it was approved, and now they're bearing the brunt of its existence.
Well, I think it's important for us to have direct dialogue. I take their concerns deeply serious.
Among their concerns, the company is running the turbines without a permit. But the health department says that's okay for the first year. And after city officials said there were 15 turbines, environmental advocates released this thermal image. They say it shows twice that many active.
As soon as we saw the image, we called like, hey, we had a conversation. What's happening with these additional ones?
So they're not using those?
No, they're in idle mode in case they are needed.
xAI declined to be interviewed, but tells NBC News it is using pollution minimizing technology and working with public officials to stop relying on the turbines by the end of this year. xAI has also pledged to build a water treatment facility for the city.
Elected officials are working for and conspiring with industry in order to draw profits.
Community organizer Keyshawn Pearson has lived in South Memphis most of his life. He says he is skeptical xAI will create hundreds of jobs and doubts the mayor's promise that its tax dollars will be directed to improve these neighborhoods.
We don't want money in exchange for our lungs or in exchange for our lives. We want clean air, we want clean water, clean soil, just like everybody else.
xAI is already building a second supercomputer nearby, even bigger, that will need even more power, raising new questions and more anger among some residents, Lester.
Okay, Stephanie, thank you.
Well, the city of Little Rock has entered into an agreement with a large-scale project development company that could lead to a $1 billion investment at the Port of Little Rock.
Channel 7's Kayla Christian spoke to the port's executive director today, and she joins us now with details. Kayla.
Yes, that's right. Yesterday, the Port and the Little Rock Board of Directors approved the sale of land for this mystery project, partnering with the Willow Bend Capital Development Company to get the job done.
The data center announcement yesterday was a big win for not only
the city of Little Rock, but for all of Central Arkansas.
An agreement has been reached allowing Willow Bend Capital to reserve 400 acres of land for a company planning to build a 300,000 square foot data center, a $1 billion investment that has been in development for nearly a year.
It'll be one of the largest economic development projects in Arkansas's history. And they just want to make sure that they have all their T's crossed and all their I's dotted so that they can make this investment safely and that the community will benefit from it. What we did yesterday was give the data center project some assurances that the community would let them move forward as they completed their due diligence.
Choosing Arkansas over countless other options and bringing benefits such as high-quality jobs.
And there will not only be jobs directly related to the data center, there will be indirect jobs that are people that are, doing maintenance, security, lawn and garden, and then more importantly, there will be, hundreds of construction jobs for several years.
And potentially more if the company decides to expand, including an agreement to pay what will be known as a city enrichment investment of $300,000 annually after the first data center opens and $200,000 for each additional data center built thereafter.
Over the last 3 years, we've had 11 announcements or expansions, and we're continuing this growth.
This marks the second major announcement in the first quarter of 2025. And while some questions still remain unanswered, the port emphasized that this represents a positive step forward for the city.
When they learn about this data center, people are going to be pretty impressed with what's going on in their own backyard.
Now, the center is set to be built near an Amazon distribution center announced last week, and the extended details on this data center project are expected to be released within the coming months. On your side, I'm Kayla Christian.
Kayla, thanks so much. And under the arrangement
in Memphis. As Ted Townsend tells it, Elon Musk took roughly a week to decide to build the new supercomputer for his AI startup, xAI, in Memphis. After a whirlwind few days of negotiations in March, Musk and his team, which included representatives from several of his companies, opted for the Tennessee city because it offered ample access to power and the ability to build quickly. This according to Townsend, who's the president of the Greater Memphis Chamber, an economic growth nonprofit that worked on the deal. xAI's contractors refer to the project as Project Colossus, and Townsend recalls Musk saying of the project, quote, "We're going to haul ass in Memphis." The project shares its name with the 1970 film Colossus, the Forbin Project, about an out-of-control AI that was given control of the United States nuclear arsenal. In the official trailer for the film, the narrator says, "Colossus sees all, senses all, knows all, controls all armaments and defenses. When this emotionless creation becomes the master of man, the result is catastrophic." The multi-billion-dollar investment, according to Townsend's estimate, was officially announced last month. But several members of the Memphis City Council are now urging the city to pump the brakes on the effort amid an upwelling of community concern about the secretive nature of the deal and the data center's requirements for electricity and water use. The council members alleged earlier this month at a public session that they were sidelined from the decision-making process, which was negotiated under NDA by Musk's team, the chamber, and local utilities and contractors, months before the data center's details were ever presented to them. The mayor's office and xAI did not respond to requests for comment. During a recent city council session, referring to the supercomputer project, council member Rhonda Logan said, quote, "This is already here and we don't know anything." She stressed the need to, quote, "slow it down and understand the impacts." Councilmember Pearl Walker told Forbes that the development has caused, quote, "hysteria among her constituents." At a Wednesday morning public meeting held by the city's utility, Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, she said, quote, "People are afraid. They're afraid of what's possibly going to happen with the water, and they're afraid about the energy supply. Memphis has had a history of bad deals, and it is very important that this is a good deal for Memphis. We have to do our due diligence and insist on things that are in our interests and good for us." After the Whiplash deal was finalized in March, construction began almost immediately on Musk's new so-called, quote, "gigafactory of compute." The supercomputer will be used to train xAI's chatbot Grok, a ChatGPT competitor that has increasingly occupied the multi-companied billionaire's attention. Musk recently troubled shareholders of his electric car company, Tesla, when he redirected shipments of valuable AI chips from Tesla to the generative AI startup he founded in March 2023. The next version of Grok will be trained on 100,000 NVIDIA H100 chips, Musk said last month, shortly after announcing that Dell and Supermicro will be providing the server racks. Rumors of xAI's data center have been circulating for months, fueled by Musk's May assertion that he would personally ensure the development of the supercomputer. This according to a report from the outlet The Information. By then, xAI had already approached Memphis developers and utility officials about locating its data center in their city. Townsend told Forbes that xAI was in talks with 7 or 8 other sites before choosing Memphis. Since March, Townsend's team made what he called an Avengers Assemble effort to, quote, meet Musk and his team's pace. He said that several chamber executives who negotiated the deal accepted Musk's invitation to tour a Tesla factory in Texas during the deliberations. He told Forbes, quote, they were courting us as much as we were courting them. xAI has made verbal pledges to improve Memphis's public infrastructure in support of the data center's development, a new power substation, and a graywater processing facility. xAI has proposed building both facilities itself, though the city's utility has said no contracts exist for these commitments. For full coverage, check out Sarah Emerson and Emily Baker White's piece on Forbes.com.
Okay, my latest podcast is about how it's important to find people that you can trust in artificial intelligence. And I wanted to make that point. There's some real clear indications that a lot of the government and state government and maybe even federal government are shying away from DeepSeek. And of course it's Chinese, much like TikTok and some others. And always going to be a question here, but there's been a lot of factors that's been brought up where there's been a lot of fake voices and fake videos, and there's a lot of opposition, but there is a need for a price of a product that competes with DeepSeek. And I think that what I'm making the point is, and if you've seen some of the videos on this, on the people from Argentina, is that I've had over 30 years to vet the people that's involved, and particularly Pablo Abdian, who's the CEO of the company, and their CTO. He is a graduate of MIT, and there's a lot of things that go along with that as far as credibility, and also the fact of being honest and trustworthy. So the corporation is one that could be very beneficial, and I want to make the point that I have a lot of contacts and friends in the industry because I was in the cable industry for so long, and one of them was Mark Cuban. I met him early on. He was manning a booth at a cable show where I was too, and we had a good conversation. He was on a lot of the panels, and so I maintained some contact there, but I'm trying to work this out where it would be a good opportunity for Little Rock, because I think there's a good cultural connection here. Even in my trips to Buenos Aires, which there were numerous, there's probably over 30, I did get to know the ambassador, James Cheek, who was from Little Rock, and he was the U.S. ambassador down here. So there is a connection there, and a lot of travel that's been down here, even from former Governor Jim Gottheimer. He was in Argentina. So there's an opportunity there, and I'm not going to say it's exactly like FedEx, but FedEx looked at Little Rock and then eventually ended up in Memphis. So I think there's a need for some action, and whether it's a Little Rock Chamber or other people involved, or getting Mark Cuban involved, and maybe possibility of Dallas, that's the other option. So I think this is a real live situation, and there's some urgency. So hopefully there will be some notice of this and some action taken. But you can see that I've made quite a bit of effort on this, and I've worked with several people on it, and I'm waiting to see some results as far as interest in the Little Rock community, whether it's through business leaders or through the education or other people that I've made contact with. There's a lot of association. So hopefully, I'm kind of gotten to the point where my health is kind of recovering now, and I'm going to start taking a real proactive action on this versus reactive. So look at this, and you might go back and look at some of the others. I did a recap, and I done some others on the trip that they did and the presentations they made on March 3rd. So we're getting into 60 days, and I kind of use the Hamilton song, One Shot. In some ways, I look at some ways my one shot, and I'm going to take all the advantages I can. I'm a facilitator, but I'm an entrepreneur too. So hopefully, some of the things will go as planned, and we can do some things about making Little Rock a leader in as far as the artificial intelligence. But if not, so be it.
Feels like, Mark, this was a goalposts moving moment for AI and how we're all going to relate to it as investors. Do you feel that way too?
Well, it certainly has been perceived that way. I mean, I think it's still too early to tell. I try to geek out and learn more about mixture of experts and the way they're doing their models and all that stuff. So, I think it's still too early, but I think what really changes is it's not just a race to raise as much money as you can in order to be a player. And it also impacts regulation. Because before, when we talked about AI regulation, the presumption was all these companies, the Metas, the Googles, et cetera, OpenAI, they were so big they needed to be regulated because there really weren't up-and-comers that could disrupt them. Now, if all this plays out the way it appears to, the message is, bring on the 12-year-olds, bring on the disruptors who can come in here and change the AI game. There's an old saying, when you run with the elephants, there's the quick and the dead. And we finally found somebody quick who can run with the elephants. And now the question is, can the elephants run with the quick companies like DeepSeek? And I think you're going to see a lot more entries into the AI space. I think you'll see a lot of more private investment into small up-and-coming companies.
I've shown you how imposters can use artificial intelligence to clone voices on the phone.
It's literally a matter of dragging and dropping audio.
COO into the largest cable provider software for customer care, and that was cable data out in Sacramento. Now, when we did that, I had an assignment, a person who's a rainmaker, Sid Shreve, who lives in Phoenix, and he's a Mormon that grew up in Argentina and Uruguay and even Brazil. So he kind of showed me the ropes, showed me how to meet face-to-face in the culture of Argentina. I joke about it being more of a smash mouth in your face because of all the Spanish and German and Italian there. And then you go to Brazil, and they've got probably a lot more Japanese, maybe the biggest population of Japanese outside of Japan there, and it's more genteel. But when you think about my place in this, I've done presentations. I've worked quite a bit down in Argentina and gone to shows and met a lot of people. I know the culture real well, and I know who the real people you can put trust in. And Pablo is somebody I've had trust in for 30 years, and I think it's been a mutual trust because anytime I need to find out something about Argentina, and it may not be just in technology, it was in LED lights one time. And so we've done many things, and even into agriculture. There's been times when we've even investigated that. But the other story is that one of the things I did when I was merged into the company, I wanted to be more in the global business development. So I went all over the world. And one of the other places was Hangzhou, China. And Hangzhou, China, of course, we know is where the big noise came out of the artificial intelligence. And I've been there. I've presented there. I've floated the lakes there.
and I've owned bicycles, so I know the culture there real well. And the funny thing about both cases, I've dealt really on the engineering level. My background was computer science, Fortran, and came up the ropes, and then we started the company, and we did a lot of different things on the main. But we went from a mini to a desktop, and that's where Microsoft entered the picture, and we had best of breed, and we could bring that in our product without having to develop a closed system like all the other providers had done, and even the people that we merged with had done. So I want to make it clear that I know the people there, and I've gotten on the level. I can go in and debrief a Chinese before he gets information from me, and I don't have to do that in Argentina. But there, I found a lot of information on a technical level, and both countries, there's a lot of things below the radar that goes on with technical people. You see a lot of smoke from the leaders, but that's not the story. And that's why this company, DeepSeek and how that thing rolled out, and they didn't have a lot of big investors in it, and the government really didn't know a whole lot about it. And now they see it's a great story, and now they're jumping on board. Now, the politics as it is in China, you never know. And that's why the alternative here of the Argentina people, I can see as a great opportunity. And I will say, I'm very familiar with taking a open source product and putting it on a lower price platform and going out and beating major companies. This is on a much lower scale, but that's something else. But that being said, I'm probably the only person alive that have done these things as far as going to both those countries. And I know if you put the qualifier on it, has Parkinson's, I would be the one person standing in the world that has done this. So I'm not trying to, that's not the story of this. The story of this is artificial intelligence. And if you want to get on TV and watch CNBC or watch Fox Business or any other business show, it's getting to be where about 75-80% of it is artificial intelligence. Now, it can be from the technical aspect, it can be from the sales aspect, a marketing aspect, or investing aspect. So that's why this thing, it turned out that when I first got a hold of Pablo, I said, hey, you're going to Chicago, or you're going to Detroit, and you're going down to Dallas, and you're going to Atlanta, and Washington, D.C., why not Little Rock? And he said, he just laughed it off, and he said, I guess you're jealous. And I think people think, well, these guys came to me and, they wanted me to do it. Nothing to that.
I wanted to talk this week about, we know who the enemy is, and we're going to investigate Pogo Principle. And this podcast is about lobbyists and big money in politics. Since all politics is local, I'll focus on a couple of situations that have come up. One of them has to do with taking broadband to the rural market. If you've seen that over the years, you'll see that there's a lot of money spent, particularly with lobbyists that were not really well acquainted with the project. They were selected because they were friends of politicians or family of politicians, even in Arkansas, and where the money was poorly spent, because if they had a focus on the telehealth part, they would have made it much easier and a much better and more efficient project. I've done several podcasts on that, and I'll refer you back to that and my friend that's out in San Francisco. Also, the other thing would be the Bitcoin mining, and I have kind of a personal interest in that. I live in Harrison when this was happening, and I saw it happening, and I put an article out, and a lot of people read it, but they ignored it, and that was in September of 2022, and you had the euphoria of the chamber president and CEO and the chamber, and you had city, mayor, council, and they got it over to the county. And we interrupt this podcast for breaking news.
Haven't heard it for yourself, you've at least heard about it.
The rising crypto world is a seemingly complex one, but the concerns from many Arkansans are pretty simple. What's going on at these crypto mining sites, and what's with all that noise?
KOK4 Samantha Blood gives us an inside look at the sites where the newly emerging world of Bitcoin is said to be giving Wall Street a run for its money.
A lot of people understand that our government is printing trillions of dollars every day, and Bitcoin is what we call sound money.
That sound money rapidly influencing our financial system across the globe, evolving into the cryptocurrency we see or hear today.
And people they don't understand, well, what the heck does that mean?
A tour with Ben Smith, the president of the Arkansas Blockchain Council and owner of a Russellville mining site, can answer that.
This is a building full of computers that are running an algorithm, a global algorithm to mine Bitcoin, searching for Bitcoin to solve a math equation.
Similar to stock, you can buy Bitcoin. Each computer here represents Bitcoin people own. They're all searching for the same winning block every 10 minutes.
One computer in the whole world will find the answer to the equation. And when it does that, you will get rewarded a block.
The block amounts to Bitcoins, seen as forms of virtual money and cryptocurrency. And there's a growing range of businesses accepting cryptocurrencies as payments, for everyday items to luxury purchases.
So this block was worth $205,000 or 3.199 Bitcoin. One of these guesses about 200 terahash a second or 200 trillion numbers a second.
All that work on the computers, resulting in a lot of heat coming from each one. That's where the noise comes in.
The loudness is the fan.
Correct, the loudness is the fan, yep.
With fans set up in front of them to cool them off. Then on the other side of this wall, the complete opposite.
As the work is done inside the computer, it heats up that computer and we have to exhaust the heat out into the, atmosphere.
While this site might seem loud, you don't hear it once you get off the property. For some of the other crypto mines going in, raising concerns from Arkansans, the issue is the size of the site, with computers in smaller boxes not having as much surface area to drown the noise out. For more than a year now, many Arkansans living near the sites going in have tried to put an end to the noise.
It is literally in our back door, so it doesn't shut off. It's 24/7.
Then the next concern comes in. Who owns these?
To inform the public.
Attorney General Tim Griffin is investigating a few of these sites now, looking to force any foreign ownership off the natural state's land.
We don't want their problems to reflect on us and our investments.
We want to kick them out. In a recent special session, lawmakers passed new restrictions over mining operations after pushback over legislation they passed in 2023. State law now gives some power back to local governments to step in.
We've never seen anything quite like this in our state before.
Legislation on the federal level is also in the works. Congressman French Hill says Capitol Hill's focus is broader.
Quickly, in Congress, we're trying to create a regulatory framework for all digital assets, which
That's one of the two key bills Hill says Congress is working on. The other would implement nationwide regulated crypto services backed by the U.S. Treasury.
As more adoption takes place, the value should go up, so Bitcoiners are betting on that future adoption.
A trajectory Smith and Hill both say indicates this is only the beginning of the crypto world.
Wall Street closes, Bitcoin never closes.
Well, I thought it was a little more infomercial than it was, I guess, investigative reporting as far as the crypto mining and even Bitcoin. I think they're underestimating the intelligence of a lot of people. I think people are a little more aware of what that's all about. You can go into your local Walmart and get a Bitcoin, so it must be something that people are more familiar with than what is indicated. But I think then you see the Attorney General doesn't know who the bad actors are, or is kind of playing it. I mean, I've uncovered about all that, and I can tell you all all the lobbyists and all the money that was being used to get those Bitcoin mines going in places that maybe the ones that shouldn't be going. And seems to be kind of an odd thing that we're talking about this at this time. I got a lot more details on that if you want to watch through some of the podcast here, and I'll give you some information that maybe might be a little surprising, since it's kind of seems to be being brushed over a lot as far as the media, what I call mainstream media, whether it's print or the local or even national news. I think David Pogue has done a real good job, and he's really kind of dug into the details. And other than that, I'm not seeing too much out there. Now back to the podcast. Willing to jump on board, and they got this property that was in the city limits that was an old station near energy. And you'll find out there's a connection through energy, believe it or not. So I've got all the details, and then we'll see that how everybody had amnesia, which happens a lot of times with the media and politicians. So one of the things you'll find is information I'm putting out there, or is this global issue with artificial intelligence, which is being ignored now, or others on the local front. So stay tuned, or watch my podcast, or read some of my articles in LinkedIn. Nice endorsement from David Pogue of CBS Sunday Morning. Okay, I just wanted to kind of highlight a few people. Of course, I've been doing some work with the National Act on Parkinson, and I've been interviewing people like Frank O'Mara. Dave Woodman's been a guest on my podcast. Sidney Moncrief's been a guest on my podcast. I even made a trip to the zoo and spent some time with the gorillas there to hear how Bitcoin mining sounds were. And of course, always JJ, he's a good person to talk to. And then in the past, there's been old Jim Cramer. I've had opportunities there, and Sid Shreve, who I worked with internationally in South America, and Steve Sullivan. He came up and did a golf event, a Kiwanis golf event in Harrison. And of course, we have Alice in Wonderland. That's always a good thing to think about. And also the, our Beavis and Butthead people from SNL. Okay, in this clip with Craig O'Neill, we talk about the POGO principle, and I think you'll find it interesting, his thoughts on that, because he was an anchorman for several years, and so he understands the issues there. You were in kind of not the a legitimate part of news, and you made that transition over into the more of the. How did that feel when you made? Was the acceptance pretty tough to be?
You mean to go from a DJ to news?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You went to sports and then news.
Oh yeah. Well, I went DJ, who was known for pranks, into sports, known for being goofy in sports, into news, and that was a tough one. Not so much for me, but for the viewer, because we had these personifications of Craig O'Neill, and it took a while, but I think toward the end of my news career, maybe people began to accept it. I may hold the record, though, for the world's longest imposter syndrome, because I had it for 24 years in television. As a DJ, I made fun of TV, and then there I was in it. And as a DJ, I made fun of TV newscasters, and there I was in it. So I had a little bit of an imposter syndrome. It was a transition that was tough to make, especially for viewers.
I saw something up close, and it was in the cable business, but it was Ted Turner, and he had his satellite station. All they did was make fun of news, and they had these little clips on there. If you ever watched it, and then he was, the founder, with CNN, that
to start that and be accepted as being someone that brings out a cable news network that's 24/7, and we know that that's spun into a lot more different things from that, but still, it's where you can pick up and watch something and catch news. But I was looking back on Ted Turner because I've seen him and met him and been at cable shows, and he's not in very good health now, and he's got this Louis. It's kind of like Parkinson's, but it's the one that Lewy body dementia they call it, and Robin Williams, that's when he committed suicide from it. I think I saw where Ted Turner is 85, and I thought, it's kind of funny how some people have made that the transition, but it's pretty tough to do that, to go from maybe illegitimate news to
Consider this, Herb, I was in news from 2008 to 2024. I did it for 16 years.
Yeah.
And worked on it every day.
Yeah.
The guy that used to be fake asking you to believe what I'm reading. Go figure.
Yeah. Well, they have to see your heart or see you and know you at that point, and that's
exactly
what you had to have. So
exactly.
So they saw that, and that's what
things like this.
Yeah, that brought it on, and that's why that was important, and that's the thing I wanted to make sure that everybody understood on that part. But I thought that was an interesting part, and I had one of the news things, and we'll get on over to reading the book here. But when you're in the news, and I talk about this, have you ever had the Pogo complex, or the thing that you come across and you say, you come across something and you find out, well, the enemy is us. It's not, you might be reporting something and all of a sudden you find out maybe you didn't do your job, or you don't feel like you did, and it may be because that's the way things have gone. I was kind of laughing, and I've done a little bit, and this is more of a serious thing, but I watched the thing on the mining thing with the Bitcoin mining,
right?
And I had a funny thing with our coffee club, and because I knew enough about it that I knew more than what everybody else knew about at the time, that all these problems are going to come up. But then you get now and you start watching what they're doing, and it's like putting toothpaste back in the tube.
Exactly.
And it's so difficult. And then you say, well, did the news people let us down?
Yeah.
They're not really, it was a fast thing that was done.
Nobody locally called their hand on it.
Yeah.
And now, like you say, the toothpaste is trying to come back in the tube. But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if you felt like that very often, or just rarely, or how did you kind of feel about it?
Well, understand that in a TV news environment, especially one with limited resources, the issue is getting stories on, shot, edited, produced, and on that day for the newscast. Point being that in local television news, the investigative part, where you would find out, they're going to do Bitcoin mining in Southeast Arkansas. Wait a minute. Are there problems associated with Bitcoin? Why is Bitcoin mining so problematic in so many other places, and yet here in Southeast Arkansas, they're welcoming them with open arms? Let's do an investigation of that. Well, in local TV news with this constant need to hit that mark, you don't have time to do that, to make the calls, to arrange the interviews. And that's not a good defense. It's really not a good defense. It's not a valid one, but it's the only one I've got to offer. So that's my long-winded way of saying you're exactly right. The local newspaper possibly included, dropped the ball and did not look into that when it started. And now we're down the road where the legislature is backtracking now. They have to check it.
It's hard to outthink the Chinese, and they know that that's one of the bad actors, and I knew that. I found out who owned one of the, and now they figure out ways to get around things like that. I mean, it's just interesting.
Right now, it's like the SEC official after a questionable play, and the SEC official comes over and goes, "After further review, there'll be no Bitcoin mining." I guess. I don't know what the latest headline is.
I don't know. They're working on it. Well, I think what I want to do now is...
Many times when we're dealing with Parkinson's, we find the enemy
is ourselves with our anxiety and depression. I want to deviate a little bit and go to how the media and how politicians have had great 20/20 hindsight, but fail to take a proactive action, and they're the bad actors.
Passed a pair of bills at the fiscal session today. Channel 7's Andrew Mobley was there. He spoke with lawmakers about the pivotal legislation and the growing outcry against a range of crypto mine issues. Andrew.
Though both bills passed through the Senate by a wide margin, there was a lot of tension in the air.
I think we had great debate on what crypto mining looks like in the state of Arkansas and how to regulate it and how to make sure that the nuisances that may be generated by those that don't want to play by our laws get addressed.
The bills notably address noise issues and outlaw ownership of crypto mines by prohibited foreign parties like China. Senate Bill 78, the more contested of the two bills passed, was filed by Senator Joshua Bryant, who also sponsored Act 851. The controversial law passed last regular session that limited how local governments can regulate crypto mining. Bryant's new bill amends Act 851 to give local governments more room to regulate the industry. Some lawmakers were still adamantly against the new bill.
They're only giving concessions because the people that were for the people's bills were going to keep driving, so they had to come up with something basically as a distraction to try and keep off the real things that would have been the things that protect citizens and protect our state.
Senator Stephanie Flowers went as far as to cast doubt on Bryant's motives.
I'm voting against it. My constituents have indicated to me this is a bad bill. Senator Irvin, they said, well, vote for yours.
You're right, Senator Flowers. Go get them.
A reflection of the character of the sponsor.
You know, I think she's emotional about the subject. I've tried to have conversations to clarify that regardless of Act 851, these facilities were coming to Arkansas.
Senate Bill 79, sponsored by Senator Missy Irvin, accompanies Bryant's bill and identifies the Arkansas Gas and Oil Commission, a subdivision of the state's Department of Energy and Environment, as the agency that will have the authority to regulate crypto mining.
They have possibly the appropriate tools in their toolbox to be able to effectuate good policy and regulate the industry. As far as the Oil and Gas Commission, it actually has a lot of the same nuisance issues that crypto mining does as far as how oil and gas is extracted from Arkansas. So it has really a lot of good same baselines that we'll look at as a state and how to regulate the industry.
I think it's a very well measured piece of legislation that really can and will address many of our issues that our citizens are facing.
Despite the steps being taken towards better regulating crypto mining in Arkansas, suspicions, particularly from legislators representing areas facing unwanted crypto mines, still run high.
I mean, the governor's pro-crypto mine, we know that. She's not done anything to help the situation other than, continue to keep it going either behind the scenes. So, there's enough legislators here. The crypto industry has their lobbyists and money people out there.
The bills may be
stranger to David Pogue on CBS Sunday Morning.
Mining. 7 years ago, Gladys Anderson bought her dream home in Bono, Arkansas.
We moved out here to get away from the busyness of town, the noise, just peace and quiet, country living.
But last May, the quiet ended when this noise began.
It was like torture, like a form of military-grade torture.
It's the sound of 17,000 computer fans in a Bitcoin facility next door.
This caused problems for me with my hearing, my blood pressure, with the sweetheart where she gets migraine headaches.
Neighbor Shane Markison takes frequent decibel readings.
82 was the highest number.
82?
82.
90 is a hairdryer.
Right.
The residents can't even move away.
I don't know who would want to buy my house or buy my place. With this kind of noise, would you want to live next to it?
I have spoke to the county judge's office, the county administrator. I have called the governor's office several times, and I know hundreds of other people have called about it.
What do you think is the reason for not doing something?
Money. It's money.
It is money. Bitcoin is... Make it stop! Thank you. Bitcoin is a digital currency with no centralized bank. Instead, transactions are confirmed by huge banks of computers run by people called miners. As an incentive to set up these facilities, the system periodically rewards the miners with freshly minted Bitcoin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But all those computers burn staggering amounts of power and make a lot of noise. Last year, Arkansas passed what's become known as the Right to Mine Bill. It prevents local communities from regulating these operations.
We've got a business-friendly state, we've got inexpensive land, we've got affordable power, and that is the perfect combination to be a cheap date for this industry.
Republican State Senator Joshua Bryant was the bill's chief sponsor. He figured that Bitcoin mining would be good for the state, but there were some unintended consequences.
What we found is that operators started operating in a manner that was not giving quiet enjoyment to the neighbors.
He points out that not all Bitcoin plants are noisy.
So I would say roughly probably half the sites in Arkansas are owned by the, per se, bad actors.
Arkansas Bitcoin miner Ben Smith says that mining plants can be very quiet, cooled by water instead of fans, built far from residential areas, and fully enclosed rather than open air like this one.
So it's all about design and honestly how much money you're going to put in to be a good neighbor or a good actor.
So who's building all the cheap, noisy plants? Senator Bryant says it's a web of Chinese companies with ties all the way to the Chinese government. The New York Times reports that Chinese Bitcoin mines are now running in at least 14 states. But the Chinese government isn't the only invisible hand here. The Right to Mine bill itself was drafted by a Bitcoin advocacy group that's pushing similar bills in at least 12 other states. In Arkansas, at least 50 Bitcoin mining plants are planned, and even Senator Bryant concedes that his bill needs fixing.
We are looking at a law, state law, that will ultimately require these crypto operations to not generate noise.
Meanwhile, Gladys Anderson and her neighbors are suing.
We've set up a GoFundMe. We've done some raffles. We most recently sold smoked pork butts.
The Bono plant's lawyers say that the volume is within local limits and said in a statement that our client is currently developing design plans to fully enclose the site within a matter of months. Well, good, because Gladys Anderson won't be giving up.
I'm a very stubborn woman, and I'm a very scornful woman. I will become just as big of a headache for them because they're setting up everywhere.
All right, you might note my LinkedIn article was written September 15th, 2022. Okay, you can buy gold at Costco and a Bitcoin at your local Walmart. Surprisingly, when I did this, I think it was around $20,000. Note all the positives there, what it's going to do locally. No mention of the noise and what it costs to keep it quiet. But see, I don't think the salaries and 5 employees ever materialized either. For those interested, they can go to LinkedIn and go enter my profile and read this article in depth. For others, you can get enough of it here. One of the funny sidelines of this is that I did get a contact about somebody from California wanting to fund my docuseries, Finding Your Happy Place, and I checked him out, and he was connected to the Bitcoin business. Metahash is one of the bad actors.
That's a great example. In Arkansas, the rapid rollout of Bitcoin mining likely happened without fully considering the potential consequences, like noise and environmental impact. Once the problems became evident, it put pressure on legislators to address the issues, which can feel like trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. Very challenging. The media and politicians sometimes don't anticipate the fallout from new technologies or policies, leading to a reactive approach rather than a proactive one. This can create frustration among residents who are affected by the noise and other issues. It highlights the importance of thorough planning and community input before implementing such initiatives. If you'd like to explore solutions or discuss the situation further, I'm here to help.
Okay, here is the article I written in LinkedIn. You see Green Digital was mentioned in that. And of course, that's one of the bad actors. And you can see there's quite a few people that had read this article, and so it got a lot of play. And then I did call out, Larson, the CEO, and even had a copy of a text he sent to the mayor and how he felt like that they'd been thrown under the bus, which, it's pretty obvious that he had presented a lot of this in advance, and the due diligence was not done very well. They went out to a few places, but I'm not sure what the sound was in some of these places and whether it was the same company. And here's a copy of a letter that I got from Jim Guy Tucker when he was governor, and it talks about when I was Computer Service Bureau, and I just wanted to mention that in relation to all these, the crypto mining things and how they were treated. And mine was well in advance, and of course here they were trying to bring in the big bucks that would kind of go back to the Chinese, but that didn't matter.
Elation after the notice. I was on record, article September 15, 2022, updated via HDT November 3rd, 2022. Caught viewing were many local leaders who have recently claimed amnesia, with 2,654 impressions, including Ron's Auto Service, Ron McNair, owner at Ron's Auto Service. Several media members, local leaders, citizens, and politicians have read it as well. I know who you are, Bob Largent, etc. Ignorance or lack of concern is no excuse when you know there were concerns raised last September. With all the publicity, how did mayor, realtor, planning commission, chamber CEO and board, city council, quorum court, bankers, etc. not realize the property was in city limits? Short answer, they did know. Playing dumb to locals while knowing that ace in the hole. New Arkansas law. The state of Arkansas has pulled off a surprise victory and become the first in the nation to pass the right to mine Bitcoin bill in both the House and Senate. Mayor's support of Chamber CEO had never wavered until recently. Chamber Board unwavering support of Bitcoin mining project, using whatever alias you prefer at the moment. They were no-shows. April 28, 2023, for a reason. Chamber unwavering support of their CEO. Are they willing to put their money behind their support? With the receipt of private messages, some appear ready to jump ship. Green Digital purchased the land for $600,000, assessed at $50,000. For what reason? There is an appearance of kickbacks or money laundering based on my years doing business globally and my other hat as a financial advisor. Since a foreign government is involved, there should be investigations by FBI, FDIC, CIA, and SEC. MetaHash negotiated with Energy and Harrison Chamber of Commerce $2 million USD project found on a LinkedIn profile. Part of a resume.
Jay Cooper, Associate Editor, and Jim Holland, Publisher of Harrison Daily Times.
Jim Holland, Chair-elect the Harrison Regional Chamber of Commerce. On the surface, appears to be a Pulitzer Prize-worthy Associate Editor and article. Could it be just a ploy? Lack of transparency and not doing their fiduciary duty for community again. Follow the money. Not my first rodeo. Largent, Chamber CEO, touts his retired military background in paid ad. Leads astute national observers to question why and how. After the April 28th pushback by the community, the strategy was to have meetings in large venues with no opportunities for negative comments. Not my first rodeo, I predicted that. After Watergate, when the second-rate burglary became national news for its cover-up, there has been a rush for settlement. Anything to avoid exposure of cover-up details. Being digitally challenged cost Fox nearly $1 billion, obviously causing concerns locally on what information is available from cyber hacking. What is meant by cyber hacking? Hacking in cybersecurity refers to the misuse of devices like computers, smartphones, tablets, and networks to cause damage to or corrupt systems, gather information on users, steal data and documents, or disrupt data-related activity. Rupert Murdoch, unwavering support of Tucker Carlson, wavered. No doubt the local pressure on the personal assets of leaders has created some major consternation, those with the deepest pockets. Mayor, realtor, planning commission, construction company, energy, title company, chamber CEO and board, city council, quorum court, bankers, all willing to risk public money before law was enacted, enabled sometime in the July to September 2023 quarter. With help from cyber hacking, there are personal assets at risks. Local officials are notorious for creating a problem, then taking credit for fixing it after they get caught. Rural broadband fiasco is another one, letting the lobbyists control the narrative and money. Government can lead people to broadband but can't make them think. Broadband is an enabler, not a panacea. All strategy is controlled in Little Rock and Northwest Arkansas. There is a condescending approach to rural Arkansas. I know professionally all the people who are put in charge by lobbyists. They have zero experience, less knowledge about rural technology and needs. But I digress. Bad news for those who thought it was over.